Good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity, where we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. I am your host, Preston Proctor. All right, so tomorrow night, Tuesday night, the Predators will be taking on the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins. The Bruins are 3-2-1 overall and 2-2 on the road. The Bruins are second in the Atlantic Division with 7 points, trailing Florida by 2 with a game in hand. The game in hand being the game against Nashville. They started the season playing away at Florida, losing 4-6, played 3 at home, going 2-1. Montreal and LA were wins, and Florida was a loss. Then they had 2 away games, going 1-1, Colorado and Utah. And so they've now played Florida twice, and both of those were losses. Our Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. That's where they are at. In those games, goalie Swayman has played 4 of those 6. He's 2-2. He won against Montreal and LA and lost the second game against Florida and against Utah. Korpisalo got the opener at Florida, which was a loss, and Colorado a win. So Korpisalo is 1-1. In the off-season, they made a number of changes with their current lineup, having eight new people. The roster that I looked at has 23. The cut is 20, and but they have 23 on the roster, and they've all played. So I was trying to decide who I thought would be in the game, but that was just a little too much figuring out. But yeah, they have 23 players on their roster, according to the NHL and ESPN. A lot of changes, as I said. Forwards that are no longer with the team, the forwards of note, that is. You're going to hear Vancouver a lot. Apparently, Vancouver's team is now Boston West. Forwards that are not with Boston this year, unrestricted free agents, Jake DeBrusk, Jesper Bodquist. DeBrusk went to Vancouver and Bodquist, Florida. Milan Lucic is unsigned. Rumor that I saw was that his career is over, but we'll see. Anthony Richard went to Philadelphia, and James Van Riemsdyk went to the Blue Jackets. So they have lost DeBrusk, Bodquist, Lucic, Richard, and Van Riemsdyk. New forwards. They got Max Jones as an unrestricted free agent from Anaheim. Mark Kastelic, part of a goaltender trade I'll talk about later with Ottawa. Cole Koepka, unrestricted free agent from Florida. Elias Lindholm, an unrestricted free agent from Vancouver. And Riley Tuft, unrestricted free agent from Colorado. Jones, Kastelic, Koepka, Lindholm, and Tufka. Defenseman not with the team from last year. Unrestricted free agent Derek Forbert, signed by Vancouver. Matt Grzelcyk went to Pittsburgh, also unrestricted free agent. All of these are unrestricted free agents. Danton Heinen, Vancouver. And Kevin Shattenkirk is unsigned. Which I guess it looked like there were some rumors he was going to go somewhere, but he's nowhere yet. But that's maybe a call out to the Preds, an early call out on some discussion I'm going to have later. Yeah, so there you go. Changes with the defensemen and with the forwards. They've two new defensemen, Andrew Peak, that a trade with the Blue Jackets. They gave up Jakub Zboril and a third-round 2027. And then another new defenseman is Nikita Zadorov, unrestricted free agent from Vancouver. So maybe Boston is Vancouver East. I don't know. Looks like just did a big swap. Vancouver got two defensemen from Boston. Boston got one defenseman from Vancouver. Vancouver got a forward, and they basically traded forward. So both teams got one forward from the other team. The goalie changes have been doing it with what defensemen are not with the team and what defensemen are. But in this case, there was a trade. And the trade delineates who's no longer with the team and who is with the team. So Linus Ullmark was traded to Ottawa for Joonas Korpisalo. Boston also got forward Mark Kostelic and a first-round 2024 pick for Linus Ullmark. Last year, Boston started off by winning 6 in a row. Their second game was home against Nashville that they won 3-2. They were also 9 of 10 in their first 10 games. Their first road loss was the 5th on the road, the 11th overall, and they were 9-2 at that point. Tonight is their 4th road game, so comparing it to last year, they did not lose a road game at this point in the number of road games. Tomorrow night's game is the last of a 3-game road trip for the Bruins. They are 1-1 so far. After tomorrow night, they go home for 3 games. That is the Boston Bruins. That is tomorrow night's opponent. The Nashville Predators are 0-5-0. They are 0-4-0 at home. It's funny. I was at the grocery store over the weekend, and somebody asked me, I had a Pred shirt on, and asked me, how they did the other night. I said, well, I don't know what game you're talking about. It doesn't matter. They haven't won a game yet. So whatever game you're wondering about, they lost. And another person stopped me, and we had a discussion, and I guess all of her friends, or a lot of her friends, think Saros is the problem. You guys have heard what I say about Saros. He's a solid goaltender. He can be a little soft a couple times. He can be. I think early in the season, he does tend to give up a soft goal in most games, but otherwise he's solid. The problem is, I think, in the defense that they're just getting too many chances in front of the goaltender. When we moved here, that was prevalent. The opposition would have 1, maybe 2 people in front of the net by themselves, with the defense running around like, a bunch of 5th graders or whatever, minor league hockey, minor in the age standpoint. And, you just can't expect the goaltender to stop that. And that's happened quite a bit. And I haven't watched every bit of every game, but I still see where the other team is getting these breakaways, getting, 2-on-1 really peppering things. Now, there is an article on ESPN I saw a comment on, and they were giving up the second most goals in a game, scoring the fewest. And the person writing this believes that the problem is the goaltending. I don't, believe the problem is the goaltending. I believe the problem is in the defense. And there was really no discussion on this. It was a lot about Forsberg and O'Reilly doing well, but Stamkos and Marchessault not clicking yet. And I think there's a lot to that. I have a hard time tracking, what the lineups are in game. I believe that they have been switching up the lineups, switching forwards lines. I know in the game last Tuesday, they were definitely switching up the defense lines and really needed to do that. I don't know, I don't know what a good lineup would be. We have seen them play well. And we've seen them give things up. So, I think that there's just certain times in the game where things kind of break down because they're not sure what their playing partner is going to be doing, or they take a risk and nobody's covering for them. That there's just, the team is out of sync from that standpoint. And then the opposition gets time in the zone in an odd man situation, and and then enough of those, and they're going to score eventually. So they're not going to score every time, but they're going to score some. And I lay some of that on Saros because I think that he hasn't been stellar, but I don't think the overall problems with Nashville is the goaltending. I think the overall reasoning behind the losing streak is defense. One of the things says in here is that shots on goal, we're leading in shots in goal, but if you've listened to me long enough, you'll know I used to live in L.A. I've been a LA's Kings fan for over 20 years. Listening to Jim Fox and Bob Miller for most of those years, Bob Miller retiring. And at one point in time, Jim Fox was trying to convince me, the audience, that the fact that the Kings had so many shots on goal was a good thing. And I always poo-pooed that. I never did all the analysis, to be honest with you. But if what you're trying to tell me is that the team is playing great because they've got a lot of shots on goal, but they're not scoring, I'm not going to buy that. You don't get any points for shots on goal. But anyway, that is my take on that. I did notice that they have called up Mark Delgazzo from Milwaukee, defenseman, Mark Delgazzo. So maybe tomorrow night we'll see some defensive changes. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. So the 0-5-0 Preds, 0-4-0 at home. As the article pointed out, no team that's ever started out 0-5 has made the playoffs. Sure, okay, that's fine. 2-10, Edmonton last year. Okay, they weren't 0-5, but they were 2-10. The Preds can be better than 2-10 after 12 games, but at 2-10, Edmonton played in the Stanley Cup final and played to 7 games. Now, the Preds aren't going to get the assist from the league that some say Edmonton got last year, or maybe gets every year. But still, it's a long season. There's still 77 games to go, and the next one is tomorrow night. So the Preds are in 8th in the Central Division with 0 points. 7th place Colorado won both of their games over the weekend, Friday and Sunday. And so the Preds now are the only team without any points. They are 2 points behind San Jose, who has 2 overtime losses. So they don't have a win either, but they've got points. Good for them. You can play a lot of golf in San Jose. Enjoy your off season, boys. All right. Tomorrow night's game is the last of a 4-game homestand. Played Seattle Tuesday, Edmonton Thursday, Detroit Saturday. And then after this, we have back-to-back games on Friday and Saturday, with Friday being in Chicago and then back to Nashville to play Columbus. It seems a little rude. At least the Columbus game is an evening game. And then they go down to Tampa for 1 game, and then back to Nashville for 3. So away, home, away, and then 3 at home. So there you go. That's what's coming up. So tomorrow night, Tuesday night, Boston. Then the next game will be in Chicago, and then we'll be back on Saturday for Columbus. Last season, after 6 games, the Preds were 3-3. They were 2-1 at home and 1-2 on the road. Their first 5 home games, which tomorrow night will be the 5th home game, they were 3-2. They beat Seattle, lost to Boston, beat San Jose, lost to Vancouver, beat Toronto in overtime. 1 lost, 1 lost, 1. So in their first 5 home games last year. By any measure, the Preds are behind where they were last year. All right, tomorrow night's matchup. Tomorrow night is the first and only home game against Boston. We won't play them again until we play them in Boston in March. And that's it. They'll get the home and away play tomorrow night here, and then in March, we'll play Boston again. Last year, Nashville lost both games to Boston, 2-3 in October, and 0-3 in April. October was the 3rd game of the year. The Preds were 1-1, and in April, the game was at the end of a 3-game losing streak for Boston. The Preds are currently on a 5-game losing streak, and Boston lost their last game. So I don't think you can call that a 1-game losing streak. They just lost their last game. So that's where the matchup is. The Preds stats at home. The Preds are 0-4-0 at home. They lost their last game at home on Saturday against Detroit. That game was eerily similar to the game against Edmonton. They got the first goal of the game for the second game in a row, getting their second lead of the season, all in the first period. Again, the first period ended in a tie, with Detroit getting a goal by Tarasenko at 13:26. The second period was hard-fought and back, but Detroit prevailed with a power play goal by Larkin. The third period started well with a power play goal by Stamkos, his first as a Pred, to tie the game. And then after that, it was all Detroit. About 3 minutes later, they took the lead, and then they added 2 empty net goals. So the Preds got the first goal of the game, tied the first, and tied 1 period and lost 2 periods. It was the first game of the year that Stamkos had a goal. And so of the kind of the stats I was tracking earlier in the season, the only one left is the Preds have not won a game. So Stamkos has gotten a goal. Marcia Schultz has gotten a goal. Brady Skay has gotten a goal. They've gotten the first goal of the game, and they've had a lead. So, well, you get the first goal of the game, you got a lead. Those are kind of redundant. Last season, the Preds were 1-1 at home when tying the first and losing the second. They were 1-4 on the road. However, of all of those, there was only one game where they got the first goal, and that was on the road in Arizona, a loss. This season, they are 0-1-4 in the first, 0-1-3 at home. They have not won the first period. They've lost it once and tied it 4 times. Again, if you're new to the podcast and you don't understand what I'm talking about, I'm looking at the goals scored in that period. Did they win that particular period? If they both score 1, they tie. If the other guys score 1 more than the Preds, they win. If the Preds score 1 more in that period, then the Preds win. So they are 0-1-4 in the first period, 1-4-0 in the second, 1-3-0 at home, and 1-4-0 in the third, 1-3-0 at home. So this is the second and third periods kind of look about the same. They have won 2 periods, as mentioned, and the one in both of those second and third periods. They did win the third period against Dallas. They scored 2 goals that time, and then the second period against Seattle. Both those games were at home. So far, they have not tied either of the second or third periods. Usually the other guys win, which is kind of funny because most of the time they've been tying the first period. Last year, 15 times, the Preds were tied at the end of the first at home. Wasn't exactly a bad situation as they were 10-5 in those games. Not in the playoffs. That situation happened twice in the playoffs. They lost both of those games. In the wins, they're 5-1-4 in the second, 8-0-2 in the third. And losses, when they were tied at the end of the first period, 2-1-2 in the second, 0-4-1 in the third. Last season at home, when the first period is tied, the Preds in the second period, the scoring that would happen in the Preds period, in the second period based upon being tied in the first period, the Preds would score 0 goals 3 times, 1 goal 7 times, 2 goals 4 times, and 3 goals once. The opponents 8 times would score 0, 5 times would score 1, and twice would score 2. So last season, a tie in the first period was not the worst scenario. Definitely not the worst scenario. However, just things aren't working this year. There's looking for your silver lining, right? I guess one thing I started looking at the scoring by period. No real surprise since they have generally been tying in the first period. They're only outscored by 1, 5-4 in the first. The second period, it's 8-3, and then 10-3 in the third. I think the second period is worse than the third because 5 of those goals are empty net goals. Again, they scored them because, they scored them. However, if you take the empty net goals out and you talk about how they played when they had, the goaltender in net, it would be 5-3 in the third. Now, they lost all those games anyway, right? And they got 2, the other night they got 2 empty net goals. So that's in 4 games, they got 5 empty net goals. The game against Dallas, there was no empty net goal. The Preds, kind of came back. They got 2 goals, lost by 1. But there was no empty net goal in that one. So I think the 8-3 differential in the second is the most interesting of all of that. The 5-4 in the first also interesting from the standpoint that they seem to be able to maintain intensity and skating with the other team in the first period, and then in the second period. As you guys know, as those of you who have listened to me for more than 5 minutes, I started looking into these statistics because last year I just got frustrated that I felt like at home the Preds were bad in the second period. And so I said, okay, fine, let's start tracking this and let's see, is it just my perception or is it real? And the truth of the matter was that at home in the second period, they were outperformed. Now, they did have moments when they did play well in the second period, but overall, the second period was weak. Not as bad on the road, but definitely at home. The second period was a problem, and I'd say that that's continuing this season. For whatever reason, we have a problem in the second period at home. Maybe we need to run shorter shifts. I've had half a mind to take a look at the shifts run in the second period and compare it to teams that seem to be able to play well in the second period, like Dallas, and see if I can figure something out. But I haven't gotten to that yet. So again, I think that the 8-3 goal differential in the second period is the telling one. The 5-3 in the third, rather that switch around, but that to me, that's not as big of a deal. It's not the sore point. If there was something that I would work hard to fix, it's the second period. It's the defense, getting the better defensive pairings, get the defensemen. Some things take time. I don't think we're that different on defense this year from last. We had a couple of changes, but not really. We've got Carrier, Fabro, Yossi, Lazan, and Shen. I mean, those are the five guys who were around last year. I don't think Fabro. I think there was a lot of people had issues with how he was playing, but the bulk of our guys have been playing together, and we just happen to have this Brady Skye. I need to hear how he says it. I'm not sure I trust the Preds announcers. I should. I should. But I'd like to hear it. Anyhow, moving on. So the defensive core it's not like there were massive changes in it. We got Luke Shen, we got Roman Yossi, Alexandre Carrier, Fabro, Dante Fabro, and now we've got Brady Skye, along with Jeremy Lazon. So I just don't see it. See where there would be a problem. I guess if there is a problem, then it's the same problem we've been having, and I think that needs to be addressed. So that to me is the biggest problem. I guess as far as scoring in the different periods. On the road, which has only been one game, they're zero scoring in the first. The goal differential is 1 in the second and 2 in the third with an empty netter. Somehow that doesn't feel right, but that's my notes. One road game. We've had 4 home games, a 5th game tomorrow night. And they really need to remedy this this problem with the defense. I don't know. They even want to. The first game was Wedgwood. We lost to Dallas 4-3. Wedgwood was a goal. The rest of them have been sorrows. The Dallas game was at home. Yeah, that's right. It was the first Detroit game that was on the road where they scored. One in the second, one in the third, and an empty netter, so 2 in the third. But yeah. Okay, so tomorrow night, the Boston Bruins come to Nashville to play the Predators. They are the NHL team in Nashville, so that's where they would play them. And that's who would be playing at Bridgestone Arena. Tomorrow night, so that will be the 5th home game for the Preds, and then they'll go on to Chicago. So I had a tough time making predictions. I really feel like I want to, though. If anything would be different from last year at this point and from the way things have been going, would be for a big win. Can I say it? Can Preds win tomorrow night? Preds are going to win tomorrow night. That's going to be my prediction. I kind of feel like nothing else. Like they're not going to get the first goal. There's just going to be statistics that just don't make any sense, because that's the only thing that does make sense. I think let's see, who is it? Mark Delgazzo is. They called him up, right? And so he's going to get the winning goal. I never would guess that. And he's going to get the winning goal, and he's going to get it in the second period. And the Preds are going to win the second period. They've won it once. No. Last year, if the game-winning goal happened in the second period, it was most likely, if it was the Preds, it was 39% of the time it was in the second period. So it's going to be the third period. So because it's not going to be the second period, because that's 2 on the nose. So Mark Delgazzo will get the winning goal. It will be scored in the third period. However that works out, the Preds will not get the first goal, and they will lose the first period. How do you like that? And they're going to win the game. That they're going to win the game. It's 5 games in. The season is not written off. I was listening to the Titans telecast the other night, and or the pregame, and the announcers were like, they should just sell everybody off. What can we get for this guy? What can we get for that guy? I'm like, that's a long season. I mean, even for the NHL, it's a long. Or in NFL, there's still a number of games left. All you got to do is make the playoffs. So, same for the Predators. 5 games in, the season's not over. The best is yet to come. In a couple of months, we'll be sitting there thinking about how great the season is, and we're going, hey, remember when we were 0-5? I'm telling you, it's going to be a good season. Things are going to work out. It's going to be exciting. We're going to get a win tomorrow night in Nashville against the Boston Bruins. That's my prediction. That's what I have to say. I'm not betting on it. I'm not a betting man. But that's what's going to happen. I'm Preston Proctor, and you've been listening to Predators Proclivity.